over to you, mate.
Okay, thanks very much for having me along, guys. Derek did say that I could come and tie anything, so let me see if I can get this to work. I thought I would start with this. You know, it's an attractive lure that's... I'm only kidding. I thought that would be quite funny, but...
Good evening, Derek. Malcolm on the...
Hiya, Malcolm.
Good evening. Good evening, Lindsay.
Evening. So what I'm going to start with is this, which might be a wee bit more tasteful. I've done lots of live demonstrations to various clubs around this neck of the woods, and I don't know where you gentlemen are situated, but down this part of the world, I was the youngest man in the room when I was at these demonstrations, the Fly Triers Guild and stuff, and I was at one particular one where I like to have a bit of a laugh when I'm doing these things, or what's the point, you know? So I was having a bit of a chat and a laugh, and come sort of the halfway point where they have a cuppa and a chocolate biscuit, I thought, Christ, this isn't going down too well. Maybe they don't understand what I'm saying because of my accent. So I went up to the chairman and said, listen, is everything okay? Your guys don't seem to be... He goes, oh, it's brilliant, Lindsay. He says, this is the first time I've seen everyone awake. So that's the kind of audience I'm used to. If you could not fall asleep, that would be a great start. So, like I was saying earlier, if you were in the room earlier, I like tying wet flies. I just don't use them too much. So we're going to start with this thing. It doesn't have a name. It's kind of something I concocted this morning while I was thinking what I was going to tie for you. I'll just take that out the vise. And the hook I'm going to use is the Hanak H260 barbless hook. It's at size 8. It's on a heavy wire. And if you've got any questions, guys, just shout out.
Did you manage to tease any out at Clue Dog?
No, I was actually there doing a rod review. So what I did do, though, I did stick a couple of flies on while I was casting. And I had 2 fish come up and refuse my dries. So I think there's plenty of fish close in it, Clue Dog. It's a lovely place. I did want to get a boat, but they were fully booked. So the thread I'm going to use is, this is the Sumo Power thread. It's at 50D. And I've got that here now. It's a nano silk, so if you've watched any of the sort of videos that I do, you'll know that I like to get a little touch of super glue onto the shank of the hook, and it just stops the fly's body rotation later on. That was another thing that always makes the Fly Triers Guild guys. I thought it was a couple of them were going to have heart attacks actually when I broke out the super glue. I didn't tell them I used about a tube a week.
I'm not going to say anything, Lindsay.
A lot of the saltwater patterns start like that with super glue on the shank.
Yeah, well, I do it with nearly all my, because I use Hanak hooks, which are finished in like a black nickel. It's quite slippy. And with the nano silk, if you use wax, I could pretty much wrap up like this and I could pull it off. So I always put super glue on. I'm going to add my tag, and what I'm using for the tag is some fluorescent chartreuse floss. And what I do with it is I'm going to fold it in half, then fold it in half again. So I've got 4 strands. And then I'll just come all the way up to the top of the body. And I'm going to stop about 1/8 of an inch or 3 millimeters if you're on the metric system. And just catch that. And once I've got it secured there, I'm going to just pull it up and keep my tag on the top of the shank. I'm going to come underneath with a couple of turns. Now, with the tags, when I'm tying river flies, funnily enough, I like to cut them really short. So I use the hook as a guide, but with these sort of flies, probably double the length. And that works out just nicely. And the next thing I'm going to do is tie in my rib. It's a gold wire, 0.2 millimeters. And I've already got a little bit off here. See, this looks pretty good so far. I hope you are quite impressed because I've laid everything out that I need. The next one's in a bag, so it's going to look like I just rolled out a skip, but we'll get there. So with the rib, I'm going to tie it the entire length of the body. And that's just to keep it all nice and even. Just open turns. And then I'll come all the way back to the base of the fly. The next thing I'm going to do is add some body material in. I've just been sent this stuff from Kindale. It's called PhD Peacock Herl. And it's like I suppose, a glister type dub. It looks like a blend of synthetic and natural material, but it dubs on really nice. You can make it a real thin body or a real thick body with this. It's ideal, and I think I'm going to use it quite a bit in my river bugs. Is there many river fishermen in tonight?
Yeah, it's quite a few.
Oh, I didn't prepare any river flies. That's a shame.
Never mind.
Never mind. So I'll bring the body up. Does anyone want to see that pink fly that I started with? Are you? No? Very effective for steelhead, I might add.
That looks nice,
So-
doesn't it?
It is, it's lovely. It just dubs on dead easy. Really nice. So the next thing is I'm going to palmer this fly. I'm going to use this. It's bleached. What do you call this again? Anyone? Grizzle. That's
Grizzle.
it, grizzle. Yeah. And I've got a feather here. And before I catch in the end, I'm just going to get a little bit of wax on. See, I'm always dead jealous of Davy McPhail. He'd have it on his hand like this, and it looks really good, but it keeps falling off my finger when I try it, so I don't bother. So I'll catch that in on my side. I'm going to clamp down on it. Just bend it out to a 90-degree angle. And then I'm going to catch my hackle. Now, I always like to get 2 tons of the grizzle in at the start. Now, there's a reason for this, and the reason is when I tie in the subsequent hackles, this is going to help support it. You don't want the fly collapsing straight away when it hits the water. So I've wrapped up my palmer, and here's a question for you. So, and when I first started doing this, I would go in the opposite direction to how I've palmered. And when I'd done one of my videos, and one of the guys said, "Oh, you're doing it wrong. You should always chase the palmer." I'd be interested to know what your thoughts were. So what I do now is I chase the palmer back up the shank of the hook. Anyone got any preference, or do you think as long as you secure the palmer, it doesn't really matter?
You can do it.
Oh,
both
everyone's
ways,
on
can't
mute,
you?
isn't they?
They're all on mute, yeah.
All right, no worries. I'll tell you what I'll do. Once I've finished tying it, we'll chat about it after, okay?
Yeah.
So now I'm going to, as I say, I'm going to chase the hackle back up. And I'm trying to weave through the palmer as best I can. You're inevitably going to catch some of them fibers in, but you don't need to worry too much. I'll get 3 turns over the wire. I'm going to get a couple of turns in front, and keeping tension on my thread, I'll just twist away my wire rib, and then I can come in with my scissors and take away the palmer. Couple of loose strands there. I'll just try and encourage them backwards. I'm going to bring my thread all the way back up to where I started the palmer. That's not too bad. The next hackle I'm going to tie in is this. It's just a cheap Indian cape. I've already picked a feather out. It's a green one. I picked this up at the Irish Angling Fair, and I think it was about a £5, but I like the colour. Kind of goes from dark green to lighter green. It gives a good effect. So I'm just going to catch that in. That strand's going to get on my nerves, so I'm just going to take it out. So I've caught in the green hackle. Just going to try and encourage the fibres to come back. Nearly lost that there. It snapped at the tip, but I've managed to recover it. So 3 turns. It's going to be enough. Secure that into place. And I can take away my hackle pliers. Pull everything back. I'm going to just get my thread on top of that hackle. So now that I've secured it, I can just pull away my waist end. I'm just going to give my thread a little spin just to make it nice and thin. And while I'm doing that, I can prepare the final hackle, which is just a black hen feather. I think I could have picked a better one actually. This one looks a bit as if it's been eaten by something. So I'm just getting a little Christmas tree action going on here. And I'll just remove once I've got that into place. I want the natural bend of the hen to sweep back. Then I'll come in again with my hackle pliers. Now, a lot of guys probably just use the handle. I always find, I don't know why, I mean, it's huge. You should be able to hold that with my fingers, no problem at all. But I always find that you get a little bit more control with the hackle pliers. Now again, I'm looking for 2 to 3 turns at the front here.
Very tidy.
And once I've got that hackle in place, I'm going to weave again. I'm going to weave my thread through. I can then take away the pliers again, similar to what I did with the green hackle. I'm going to sweep everything back out the way now. And then little fibres just getting on my nerves a wee bit. It goes without saying you've got to keep tension on your thread all the time, or think you'll come unstuck. So I've had to cut that in the end, which is a bit annoying. Usually I just like to sweep all my mistakes behind me. So I'll build a little head there, and then I can just pull away the excess hackle. And then what I'm going to do is finish off with the whip finish tool. Now, you can use either super glue, varnish. I like to use the resin. You get that instant finished look with resin.
What resin are you using, Lindsay?
I'm using the Solaris Bone Dry, and I've used this for years actually. I like it because of the brush. It comes with this brush, which is quite fine and accurate. What you don't want to do is get a load of resin on your feathers, because the feathers will just suck up that resin, and it does affect the fly. Just give me a second. That's the vital stage there. I'm going to take that off and do it again. So we'll just add the resin. And this is me without the whiskey.
If I could pour it down, I would have given you a glass.
So I've obviously, as I put that resin on there, I've clogged up the eye, and I don't want to do that when I cure it. So I'm going to just come in with a spare feather and clear the eye. And then when I cure it, I'll not have to worry about, there's nothing worse that I hate it. It's when you're in a boat or you're on the riverbank and you take a fly out your box and you've gunked up the eye and you're trying to clear it. And then once you've cleared it, you tie the tippet on and it snaps because you didn't clear it properly. So always make sure that it is clear at the vise. So once that's done, you can come in with a toothbrush.
Is this one you fish, Lindsay, usually in a team of flies or a singular?
Oh, I would fish it in a team.
And where would you put this?
I would either have it on the point or on the bob. Top dropper or... Oh, wrong button. Top dropper or the point. Usually the point, actually. It's great early season, this. I think green and black's a brilliant combination for early season loch fishing. It just works. Early and late. It's pretty good.
And what would you normally put with it? Sorry. What would you be having?
So, I mean, if you wanted to fish like 3 wets, I'd probably have something like this on the point. I'd have a Zulu on the top dropper and maybe a dabbler in the middle, something like that.
Okay, thanks.
And I would fish them on sunk lines as well. I'd have no problems about, putting them on a sunk line and just pulling them.
Has anybody
Lindsay,
got any questions for Lindsay?
Yeah, can I ask? So that looks like quite a traditional fly. What's Lindsay's views on kind of traditional versus modern flies? So You know, that fly
Eh,
versus a gimp.
You're probably asking the wrong person. I taught myself to tie flies, and I don't really hold to the. I mean, I know some people, they go mental if you've tied something and you've called it, let's say for example a Zulu, and you've not used glow bright number 15 for the tail or something like that. People
Sure.
lose the plot. I've got no time for that. It's nonsense. The fish
Yeah.
don't care. You know, I'm an angler. I tie flies to catch fish, and fly tying, I've said it many times, it's a separate hobby, which I do very badly. I just tie what I fancy, and if I like the look of it, I'll fish it. And half the thing with fishing is confidence in the flies you're using. So I've got no qualms with traditional. I like tying up similar. I mean, this probably looks a bit like a Zulu, just a different color scheme, I suppose. I wouldn't call it a Zulu because somebody'd probably be in the gallery shooting at me. So I just call it a wet fly, and then you're pretty safe. You know, if you call it a wet fly, you're safe from any sort of people hounding you. I've had all sorts, especially on the YouTube. You can't call it that because you've not used Dunkeld 15 bootlace straps that sold out in 1936. You know what I mean? Oh, sorry, I didn't have any of them Dunkeld bootlaces. But yeah, I use what I've got, and I have got quite a lot of stuff. So, you know, usually I can cobble something together that'll look appealing. And I think I don't consider myself a particularly good fly tyer, to be honest. And I know some remarkable fly tyers, but what I can do is I can whittle a fly together, and I know how to photograph it to make it appear like it looks really nice. But if you've seen it in real life, you'd be throwing it right in the bucket. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What would you say are competition flies versus what you'd actually tie and use?
Competition flies they need to be quick to tie. So I mean, I've done a lot of competition fishing over the years. I fished for the army, still occasionally fish for the army, but I fished for England in the past. And what you need to be able to do with competition flies is if the team, and you know, an international team's 14 anglers need a fly and you're tying it, you don't want to be doing one of these. You know, you want to be tying something really quick, like a cruncher or a blob.
Sure.
I can fairly rattle off boobies. I will be tying a booby later, but yeah, it's got to be quick. Is the key difference between what would say fly tying for the pleasure of it and fly tying for the necessity of it. Does that kind of answer your question?
It does. Thanks, Lindsay.
Yeah, no worries. Anyone else? No. Okie dokie. It's water. It's not gin, it's water.
You need to add something from the top shelf there for us, I think. You got a bottle up there anywhere too.
I've got several bottles up there. I wouldn't sully my whiskey with water. Okay.
Not even a wee drop.
Depends. So I have got some amongst there. I know it doesn't look it, but there's about 25 bottles. It goes back in rows, and there's some of them cask strength that are around sort of 69, 70%, and you just need water just to calm the alcohol down. But on the whole, most of them I think I'd probably not bother.
Yeah, you got one of my favourites there. Let's see the Glenfiddich.
Yeah, the 12. So that's most whiskies are bottled at 43% alcohol, which
Yeah,
is okay. But I like a lot of the cask strength stuff. The Abunas and that are coming in at 69, 70. They're big hitters, you know, and you need a bit of water to
yeah,
still
especially the
standing after
smoky
2 or
ones,
3.
don't you?
Yeah. Let me, I'll just put this in the vise so you can see what I'm going to attempt next. Always say attempt, and then you're covering yourself when you fall on your arse.
No, you do fine, mate.
Okay. That's my phone looking at my map. There we go. So we're going to have a go at this. It's a shuttlecock pattern. And again, going back to your question earlier about competition flies, this it's not, there's no bling. It's just simple, effective fish catching fly. It does take a little bit of effort to tie, but it's fairly straightforward. Sorry, I've just lost my bobbin. That one. Okay. So let's get that out of the vise and put in a hook. God, time's wearing on already. I've got to be kind of gone by about 8:15 because I've got the final video of the Kit Kat Cup series, so I've got to be online for that. So the hook I've stuck in the vise there is a Hanak treble 3. This is on a fine wire. Now it says fine wire, but I wouldn't like to fish with it with a 7 weight or an 8 weight. That, you know, 5 weight maximum you'd get away with, or you'll end up bending your hook out. The thread I'm going to use is some 80-knot nano silk. It's black again. I'm going to just start with a bit of super glue. I'm going to come down about 0.5 centimetre, then I'm going to come back. Now I've not come straight to the eye. I've stopped a couple of millimetres back for the eye of the hook. And I'm just going to dig out some of this CDC. Excuse me. It's a tan feather. My wife's taking my youngest daughter up to Liverpool to see Taylor Swift tonight. So I was left to my own devices in the kitchen. I had 2 Scotch pies and a big pile of chips. I think I've eaten too much. So what I'm doing, just off camera here, I'm going to stack my CDC feathers now for this fly and the size. I'm looking for 4 CDC feathers. If it'd been a smaller fly, I'd have used a lot less. So I've
Where'd you
stacked
get
them
your
up.
CDC feathers, Lindsay?
Trout line. I get mine for trout line. I used to, well, I get them for a number of sources. So I've got a couple of friends that shoot and kindly pull all the CDC out the arse of the duck, and I get bags of that. But to be honest, it's a bit of a pain because you've got to sort through the good stuff and the chaff. Whereas trout line, they come in little packets and they're almost all stacked together, ready to use, which I really like.
It's a lovely colour, that though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a nice sort of, try to think what it was called, like a tan. So what I'm looking to do, I never want to cut my CDC. I want it to finish natural like that. I mean, I'm not sure it makes much difference, to be honest, but it's just a personal thing. I think it looks better. So I'm going to catch that in. I'm going to get a couple of turns. Just make sure I've got, so I'm just lifting up the CDC there to make sure my gap's still there. So I'm going to need that later. And then I'm going to come down quite hard on the CDC. And then I'm going to cut at an angle. And this is going to help me create my body taper. So with the 80-knot thread, it does take a little bit of time to form the base of your body, but it's worth it in my humble opinion, because you get a nice neat finish. So I'm going to come all the way down to the bottom here and just check yeah, that's looking okay. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use some strip peacock herring. again, I've gotten lazy in my old age. I used to just sit and strip these by hand. I would sit and watching the telly just with a packet of peacock herring. I would strip them down, and now I just buy them. Life's too short for stripping peacock herring.
What are you using?
It's
Polish.
Yeah,
Sorry,
Sorry, Adam.
that's all right.
sorry. Somebody have a question?
Yeah, is it Polish?
No, again, it's a trout line.
Right.
Them Polish quills, I love them, but they're really difficult to get a hold of. I find it quite difficult to source them now. So I'm going to catch that in at the bottom.
Where are you getting your trout line stuff from? Because I've had a problem importing that now.
Well, I have been getting it from Get Slotted,
Yeah.
but I tend now to order for Romania, but I put in an order for £100 to make the postage worth my while. Otherwise, you know, you're buying 2 or 3 packets of stuff, and I think it's £25 postage, which is shocking. So I'm just going to work on this taper for a second. Bear with me.
Yeah, I got a load from Sammy in Fastener, and it cost me 66 quid in postage.
66.
Yeah, shocking, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I can one up you on that. I bought one of them semi-automatic reels from Ireland, and when it came, I got a £35 import tax bill. Friggin' furious.
What, from Ireland?
From Ireland, Southern Ireland.
Aye.
It'd have been cheaper flying over and picking it up. Anyway, what I've done there, sorry, I was blethering. I've just put some extra turns in at the head of the fly here. I'm going to grab my hackle pliers. Yeah, leaving the EU. It sounded like a good idea at the time.
No, it's fucking stupid. It was.
Yeah.
You don't realise how much we're actually buying from abroad, do we?
Well, exactly.
No.
I mean, I know Lucian. I've known him for years, and he was saying it's because it's a real, because the UK is obviously quite a big market for fly tying materials, and he said it really hit him hard initially. I think they're starting to get to grips with it. So what I'm doing with this stripped herald here is they're not touching turns. I'm leaving a little bit of black thread just in between the turns of peacock herald that I'm making. And the other thing you might not have seen, before I tied this stripped herald
You wet it,
to the
didn't you?
hook, I wet it in my mouth. Just sometimes, not so much with the trout line stuff, but I've used herald in the past when it's been a bit brittle, and if you don't wet it, it just snaps as you're trying to turn it in the vise. So again, I could leave it like this, and on some of the smaller ones, I do just leave it. But because this is a fairly big size 12, I say fairly big, the Hanak hooks tend to come in a little smaller than your old Kamazan hooks used to do. So what I don't want to do is get any resin on that top part, really. So I've still got to tie in something there. It's a hell of a summer we're having, eh?
No, yeah, wonderful.
No.
It's pretty perishing, isn't it? It's terrible.
It's getting out of hand now. Like, I mean, I'm not a big fan of the heat, but I wouldn't mind a little bit of summer. That's why I moved to the south of England, for God's sake. You expect that in Scotland, you know? Oh, it's raining.
Yeah.
No shit, Sherlock.
Lindsay, when would you fish like a CDC over a top hat buzzer?
Always. For me.
Okay, why?
Right. So when you're fishing for dry fly, I love fishing dry fly. It's a great way to fish, but I believe that a lot of people, they cast far too far for a kickoff. I wouldn't be casting more than 20 feet if I'm fishing dry fly, generally, because if the fish are in the surface and you've cast a long line, more than likely you're going to line several fish because you're targeting something that's too far away. And if you are fishing at distance, the chances of you hooking that fish up are slim. You know, if I've got the flies 20 feet from me and I see the take, more than likely I'm going to catch that fish. If I've cast at a fish because it's the only fish I've seen rise all day and it's 40 feet away, there's a good chance that I might feel it, but I'll not hook it up. Does that make sense? Now, oh yeah, why the CDC over the top hat? So
Yeah.
when I've got top hats and I have used them, but when they land like a pile of shite. You know, they make a massive disturbance in the water, which can sometimes be what you want, but very often it just spooks fish. When a CDC lands, if you've cast and you've extended your cast and your leader's turned over and it's landed on the water, it just lands perfectly, and then it settles, and the fish very often will take it in the first 3 or 4 seconds of hitting the water, whereas the top hat, it smashed the water, and the fish will probably not bother with it. I mean, you know, Ian Barr uses them all the time for that gimp thing that he's got. It seems to be very effective, but not for me. So what I'm going to use for the thorax here is some natural possum. This is natural boosted, is it? No, it's natural grade possum. So I like the possum because it kind of stays quite tight as a thorax rather than springing out. And again, it dubs really easy. And what I'll do is I'll come back to where I finished off. And that looks about right. I'm going to grab a pinch more. Now, I've put quite a bit on. I can always take it off if I'm not happy. But what I want to do next is grab my wing, pull it back. And remember, when we started, I was quite keen to have that couple of millimeters in front of the CDC wing. And the reason for that was I wanted to build up that dubbing. Now, what this does, of course, is when the CDC lands, the weight of the hook, and because I've used resin on the body, it will cock immediately into the surface film. Now, I don't want to go in with a brush or a needle even when I finish, so I'm going to just get a touch of super glue onto my thread. And it is just a touch. And then I can take that away. This
Lindsay,
is probably about... Go on, sorry.
This is a 12. So if I was up at Rutland or Grapham at Pittsford, what would you fish this down to? Would you take it to a 14 or a 16? What's the kind of minimum?
On a large reservoir, I wouldn't go much smaller than a 14. I don't think there's a requirement, to be honest.
Okay, mate.
On a river, I'm tie them down to 18.
Cool.
Smaller the better, really. The answer, you know, the answer usually, if you're fishing over fish that are active and you're not catching them, the general rule of thumb is go down in size. You know, regardless of the pattern, just get your footprint a little bit smaller, and you'll get a bit more success. Generally speaking, I've gone the other way, of course. You know, I've been throwing sedge patterns at fish in size sort of 14, 16s to no avail. I've stuck on a size 8 and they've come up and smashed it. So, you know, that's fishing, isn't it? If it was easy, we wouldn't bother.
Cool. Thanks, mate.
Lindsay, could
Yeah.
you use a peacock? No, sorry. Could you use a peccary quill in place of a stripped peacock hull,
Yes.
please?
Yeah, absolutely. I've tied a few like that actually.
Uh-huh.
They look really nice.
Yeah.
I think I prefer the strip peacock herring,
Mhm.
especially if you've got a nice defined strip peacock herring. But the peccary's quite good. The moose man.
Does the peacock hull sit flatter on the body, do
Yeah.
you think, than a peccary quill?
Yeah,
So-
definitely.
so
It's a much thinner
Thinner,
material.
so you'd get better penetration through the water surface, maybe.
Yeah. It cocks to. Sorry, I'm just trying to get everything. I've got this tiny little space. I'm just trying to clear it for the next one.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Lindsay, what tippet would you be using against this?
For this, I go down to about £5 fluoro for my dries.
Yeah.
But if I'm going out intentionally to fish dry fly, I'll be fishing with a 5-weight rod, £5 fluoro.
Okay.
I used to
Just-
fish copolymer, but it's a pain in the arse. You know, you're always degreasing it to make the leader sink. Where if you use fluorocarbon, it goes down itself for you pretty much, unless it's a flat cam, of course.
Thanks, mate.
Right. I wished I'd known there was going to be a load of river anglers in, because I would have made more of an effort to tie maybe a bug or something. But
You can do that next time.
yeah, I'm surprised you'll have me back after this. Okay, so let me just get all this. Can you guess what it is yet?
Is that marabou?
It is marabou.
Got some blue tinsel there.
Let me get this in the vise.
I'm disappointed there's no pink snakes.
I love a pink snake. I love a pink snake.
They were.
They're not much more effective, you know.
I tell you what, clue our dog at the weekend, mate. Pink snakes all the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The fish haven't really come to the surface there yet. Most of the boys that I could see were fishing DI5 sweeps from the boats. They were trying to get their flies down a little bit.
Yeah, fast glass and pink snake way forward.
Yeah.
Up at the weekend, just gone.
Trouble is I think the boys, when I was there, they were practicing for the airflow competition.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
there'd been no pink snakes.
Gaz and Russ were stripping blobs.
Yeah. I mean, they know that, you know, they put the fish in. It's a bit unfair, really, isn't it?
Yeah, let's not get into that.
Yeah. Right, I'm going to switch the camera back and show you this fly in the vise. There we go. So this is it's obviously a damsel pattern, but it's not any damsel pattern I think you will have seen before, and there's a reason for that, because it's a mishmash that I just made up. But the influence for the fly came from a lot of different anglers. So the basis of it is Ronnie's damsel, which is a fly that the army had for years that was super successful. But some of the other bits that I've added some, and Adrian Nisi is an angler based out of Buell, and he showed me a damsel pattern, which I've incorporated a little bit of his tying into it as well. So let's get on and tie it. So, have I put the right hook in the bag? I think so. So this is 260 at size 10. Again, it's for a size 10, it's probably equivalent to Camazan B175 at size 12. Now, the thread I'm going to be using, you'll be glad to hear, it's not nano silk, it's red classic tying thread. It's 6. So I'm just going to get a little bit of wax onto my thread, and then I'm going to lay down a bed of silk.
Oh, no super glue.
No, I'm giving the super glue a rest till the end. I can use it if you like. I can incorporate it at some point. So we've got our bed of thread down now. This isn't the original marabou I used. It's just what I've got at the minute. In fact, it's rubbish. If I'm honest, nature spirit. The plumes are very poor, so you don't really get a lot of length, which is a shame. But what I do with my long-tailed marabou flies, from my nail to my knuckle, is generally what I'm taking from the stock here. So if I just grab that. And what I'm going to do is just take the little white bits over my waistband and get rid. Now, before I tie this in, I'll come up the shank. I'm going to stop again, a couple of millimeters back from the eye. And then just trying to keep that marabou on top of the shank. All the way back, a couple of turns underneath, just helps with the tail filling. Then I'm going to come in and shorten that tail. There's nothing worse. And I've been to these still waters with guys that are going, oh, I keep getting takes and takes and I just don't seem to hook up, and it's because their tail's here and the fish are back here nipping the tail, which is why they're not hooking up. So next thing then, this is the Glow Bright number 7. I'm going to take the tiniest amount off the spool. What I want to do is catch in a couple of turns on my side, and then I'm going to bring this over, and I want it to come up the side at the back. Now this part here, this part of the fly, was inspired by Adrian Nisi, and he showed me this back in the day, and it was tied on a double, so that lets you know how long ago it was. I can't remember the last time I tied a double on my cast. Now I want about a centimetre of this either side, just to give it that flash of colour. And then before I carry on, I'm just going to damp down everything just to keep it out of the way. So next thing then is my blue tinsel rib. Now, when I first started adding blue rib, I got it from a haberdashery shop, and it was much thinner than this. So what I do with it now is I try my best to just stretch it out a little. Sometimes it just does deform the blue, but I don't want it as thick as it is. So give it a little stretch. You can get away with a fair bit of stretching. Pretty robust stuff. Then I'll catch again. I'm going to catch it in on my side. Don't worry, you're not missing nothing. I'm not keeping any secrets from you. I'm just attaching it. Now, the body of the fly, it's changed over the years for me. So I used to, when I would snip away, pull away the tail here, I would just dub on what I took off, and that done for the body. But nowadays, I'm using some of this stuff. It's called Bug's Life. It's kind of a hybrid synthetic mix. I want to try and keep it fairly thin. Now, as I'm sure you're aware, damsel flies, for fishing with, it's all about the movement, and this has got lots of things that's going to help make it move in the water. Not least that tail at the back.
Is that another Kindle dubbing, is it, Lindsay?
No, this is, I shouldn't really use them in demos anymore because it's a dubbing from Andrew Ellis, who got into local politics and sadly doesn't do his dubbings anymore, which is a real shame because I really liked several of these dubbings I use as a sort of bread and butter sort of thing for the flies, my fishing flies anyway.
Is that Andrew, Scruffy Dub?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't
Yeah,
realise. Good job I stocked up then.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
he's I think he's a councillor now. He's certainly something to do with politics, and since then, people can't get a hold of him. So maybe he'll come back to it once he's finished his stint at the dizzy heights of power.
I thought he was more intelligent than that.
Well,
His
it's
Highland
not.
Pete's a lovely dubbing.
Yeah, I've got several packets of that, and I really like it. But my favourite's the natural boosted. It's great for everything, hare's ears. You can use it on river bugs. It's just excellent.
Which one's that?
It's called natural boosted.
It's
So
a lot of
basically,
squirrel in it, isn't it?
It's a lot of squirrel with some
Yeah.
synthetic stuff in, which gives it that little colour and bit of boost. So
Yeah.
I've got my rib in place now, and what I want to do now is add in some of this stuff. Now, as I said before, it's all about movement. Let me just throw this off my desk so that I can see what I'm doing. Don't need that. Don't need that. So this is troutline pheasant marabou feathers. Now look at them. I've got one out the packet already, and the reason I've got one out the packet is because I only use the tips, but I save the rest goes back in the packet because I use that for another fly. So what I'm going to do is just take the very bottom of the feather away, and then I'm going to grab my hackle plier, just the very tips I want here. And I'm going to pull that back. So I can catch that in. And what I'm looking for, just 2 turns of this. The movement in this is amazing in the water. It's just really pulses. Got my 2 turns there. Just going to work my way through the fibre. pull everything back. I'm going to catch that over the top, and I can pull that away. Now, when I've finished dressing the fly, you hardly see this until it's wet, and then if you just do a jerky retrieve, it really comes to life. And then the finishing hackle up on this is partridge. As I was saying earlier, I've not got the best of feathers, and this is sorely needing renewed. But what I'm looking for is a feather that's got a touch of brown in it, really. There we go. There's just I hope you do realise there's just now a big pile of fly tying stuff on my floor here. I need to send one of the kids in to tidy it up later. So I've picked out a partridge hackle feather, but it's one with a little bit of brown in. Again, I'm going to catch the tip with my hackle pliers. Sorry, I wasn't sure if somebody sneezed there or was somebody asking something.
There's a cough.
Okay. So before I catch this in, I'll get a tiny little bit of wax on to my thread. Now I've tried this with all manner of different heads, black and green, and there's nothing quite beats this red. Another way of doing this is substitute the green for black and use that Highland peat dubbing on the body, and that worked really well as well. Black, it's probably can't be called, I call it a black damsel, but it's just a lure is the bottom line. But it's super effective. So what I want to try and do is use all of the partridge feather. Sorry, it's just snapped again there. I'm going to bring that to the front. Not quite managed to fit all of it in, but a good chunk. Again, I'm going to just come to the front. Get everything pulled back. And I'm going to start working on my head. And I don't want a tiny little head. This is another trigger point for the fly. I'm not going to risk trying to pull that, actually. It's a bit thicker than I like. Then to finish off, whip finish, and sometimes use the whip finish just to tidy the head up a little bit.
Lindsay, that's a lovely looking fly. So I guess for me, the question would be, what would be the conditions that would say that's the fly that I want to use and this is the line, whether it's a fast glass or a dice 7 or a floater?
Well, damsels on the water is always a good indication that this fly is going to work for you. You know, if you've got damsels flying about you, I would generally fish it in as the point fly of a team of flies. And I don't do a lot of small stillwater fishing. Most of my fishing's done from a drifting boat, and
Yeah.
This is a fly I would put in the point, and I tie it up so that it's competition legal.
Yep.
And it's done very well for me over the years. Yeah, I was going to say usually about now, but the weather's been shite. I don't think I've seen a damsel yet.
Yeah.
But usually sort of June, July, I would have it on the point and probably fast glass up. I wouldn't fish this on a really fast sinker, but fast glass up, super
Okay.
effective.
So you do this on what? Midge tip, maybe 6 foot midge tip with what? A cup of
Midge
jar?
tip, crunchers or dial backs up.
Yep.
Yeah, so there we go. I think I'm just about out of time actually, but I hope that's been of some use. Is there any more questions about the pattern and the vise?
Yeah, for international rules, would you just have a very, very small tail, or would you go a smaller hook size?
Well, let me show you. I'll just don't know how well you'll see this actually. So that's the international rules card that you're supposed to comply with, and basically I'll just read it out to you. So the hook size is 5/5 of an inch, and the overall fly size is 15th, 16th of an inch. So it's not very big. You know, if I dress the card up here, even that fly I've got in the vise there is a little too big, but I would just snip the tail on it, you know, so that it fitted into the gauge. Not that I worry about stuff like that very much anymore.
Thanks
I've
for
got to
that.
be
Yeah,
honest.
I forgot it was a size 12, which is small anyway. The 10 is the maximum. So
and a
yeah.
Hanak size 12 is even smaller than, you know, a Camazon, so it is quite a small hook.
Great, thanks.
But any more, gents, for any more?
I think most of them are still on mute.
All right.
Thanks for tonight, Lindsay.
Oh, no worries, Derek. I'm glad I could help out.
Thanks very much, Lee. It's been interesting.
Hope you'll come
No
back
worries.
and do another.
Yeah.
I will, but it's a shame because your meetings, they just fall into, I've delayed the video going out tonight to 8:30 because I was committed to doing this. But usually my videos go out at 7 o'clock on a Thursday. So I'm kind of tied up. But if I can fit it in, or I'll tell you what, I take a holiday in August from YouTube, so I might be able to do something middle of August, and I might do some river flies next time. In fact, I will do some river flies next time.
Yeah, I've got 3. I've got the 15th, the 22nd, and the 29th of August free.
All right, I'm really on holiday then.
So you don't
Yeah,
want to
I'm away with the family.
You don't want to be doing it while you're on holiday with your family.
My wife would lynch me, Derek.
Yeah.
Lynch me, quite literally. So
Derek,
yeah, that will not be happening.
Can I just ask, what's the most critical water of life?
Sorry, say again.
What's the favourite critical water of life as far as you're concerned, Lindsay?
Oh, whiskey. Ooh. Yeah. The trouble is that, I'll tell you what the problem is, and it's a big problem, is I go to whiskey shows, so I get to try some really, really nice stuff, and I can't afford it, is the honest truth. But a 25-year-old Ben Nevis is something to behold. The best whiskey I've ever actually forked out and bought was a Bunnahabhain but it was a singleton cask. So what happens is some of these private firms, they come in, they'll buy a barrel of whiskey from a whiskey merchant, and they'll bottle it themselves. And that was an independent bottling, Bunnahabhain 9. It was like, when you drunk it, it was like toffee and treacle and cloy, lovely. It was delicious. But I've never had its like since. I had a 30-year-old Bowmore at a show once, which was, when I got it, it took me about an hour to drink it. I was trying to stretch it out, you know. But yeah, there's so many good ones out there. It's hard to pick one. I'd have to pick about 10, I think.
Cool. Cool.
Are we all good?
Yeah.
Very nice, Lindsay.
Right.
I must compliment you on your picture. The quality of the video is superb from your setup.
All right. I wasn't quite sure how it would look over Zoom, actually.
Brilliant, absolutely
Yeah.
best I've seen it here.
Yeah, looks good.
Yeah. Well, that comes up. I mean, I've got let me just, if I get my phone. So that's my setup there. I don't know
Yeah,
how well
it's
you
come
can see
through
that, but
absolutely crystal.
I've-
It really
I've
is.
got it's a DSLR. It's a Lumix G80 with a macro lens on it. I've got a ring light. I've got another light up here, and I've obviously got my lamp here. So there's quite a lot of light getting thrown on the fly. But that just comes from doing videos, you know.
Are you using
know-
a fixed focus? Because it didn't go out of focus once.
No, so basically I'm shooting this in about 3.5 f-stop. So as you'll see when I put it back on the fly, I'm blurry.
Yeah.
So it's on manual focus on the fly, and that keeps it sharp. And 3.5 is about the sweet spot for keeping the fly in focus, even though I turn it, and you know, it'll still remain in focus. Whereas everything else out with that, even my fingers, if I bring them back slightly, is
Yeah.
out of focus. And
It was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah. Good presentation.
Yeah, super nice, clean ties. Very good. Thank you, Lindsay.
Oh, thank you. That's kind of used to tune in.
I'm only drinking this to support you, by the way.
Excellent.